Brother George, how are you today?
Good, Buffalo brother John. How are you?
I am fantastic.
Oh, fantastic! Did you enjoy the game last week?
Well, no, they lost.
Yeah, they didn't lose.
They didn't lose.
Uh-uh.
They were beat.
They were beat down,
Yeah. All right.
beat up. They were just beat like a steel drum.
Yeah. The Rams did not give them much opportunity to get back in that game. They just kept scoring and kept scoring and kept scoring.
John, the whole Buffalo Bill team didn't get beat. The defense got smothered,
And the special teams.
and the special teams just was another ridiculous joke.
That was a joke. Okay.
And it's like
Yeah.
they didn't get beat. They just, I don't know. They just that's in bad shape. That's special teams, and it's got to get fixed. But
I'm with you.
the Bills are still 10-3,
All right.
outstanding team. Already won their division. Definitely going to the playoff. At this point, it's like where are they going to be in the seeding race?
Right.
Right now, they're sitting in the number 2 spot, and looking at other people and their records, I think it's going to be hard for them to drop out of that number 2 spot. I also think it's going to be hard for them to move up to the number 1. So I'm thinking we're probably where we're going to be,
Well, let's see.
which means a guaranteed of 2 playoff games, if as long as they win it.
They're 10-3, and they are 2 games behind Kansas City, right? Because they're
Mhm.
12-1.
Yeah.
And they are with 4 games to play, they're down by 2.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think the number 1 seed is gone.
Does Kansas City have an opportunity? Is it the chance there for them to lose 2 games? Yes, they got to play Pittsburgh and they got to play Denver. Both could be treacherous games for Kansas City. But for the Bills, they got to play Detroit this week. And after that, I
Miami and the Jets.
no,
Or
New
the
England and
Jets
the
and New
Jets.
England, right?
Right. Two
Right.
New Englands and a Jet. So to me, it's looking like, well, we'll get on to what we think, but let's say a minimum of 3 more wins for the Bills, which puts them at 13 wins.
It does.
Okay. And Pittsburgh is also 10-3, but they have a tough schedule. They got to
Okay.
play Kansas City. They got to play, forgive me, maybe Baltimore. I don't know, maybe Philadelphia. I don't know. They got something. We checked their schedule. They've got a really tough end of their schedule. So it looks to me like the Bills are probably going to hold on to the second seed. But really, that withstanding, where does that put the Bills in a playoff run deep into the season? Well, let me tell you, the Bills are 6-0 at home.
Right. They have a very good home record.
They're 4-3 on the road. They could go to 4-4 this week if they lose to Detroit on the road, with 2 more road games coming up, a Jets game and a New England game.
Okay.
And so that could be the difference for the Bills if they can't win on the road at all. They can't come out as just a 500 team. They come out as a 500 team on the road. It might be tough for them to maintain that second seed.
Okay. How do you want to do grades for
Yeah, I'd love to do that.
all right, what do you got grade for the offense?
I can really give him an A. I think Josh Allen and the receivers that he had and his offensive line, they kept him clean. They did allow a little bit of pressure, but they never got to Josh. He did come up with, didn't he score 3 touchdowns on his own on the ground?
Yep.
He played like a maniac out there.
He ran for he got 3. 2, I think we're running. Yeah, they got 3. He got all 3 on the ground.
Mhm.
And then he passed for 3. So it's total of 6.
And the Bills scored their
He
highest.
might have set up Bill's record.
The Bills set scored their highest point total of the year with 42 points.
They got one of the highest point totals in history.
It- yeah, and so I got to say the Bills. I'm going to give them an A. The reason I can't say A plus, they don't have a running game. They couldn't find the running game. Part of that could have been because they were chasing the Rams the entire game. The Rams started with the ball, scored on the first drive, and never looked back. The Rams were never behind, never in trouble. And Josh Allen and the Bills offense put their shoulders to the wheel, and they continued to keep that game close the entire time. Ended up losing by 2 points.
That's true. All right.
What about you for the offense?
Well, I don't do plus or minuses.
Okay.
And I'm going to give them an A. Because they really did some special things out there. Shakir had a couple of special plays. But it's concerning that they could not run the ball. It wasn't just in the second, late in the game, they were down by 2 scores. They had to score that fourth quarter. They had to score, and they had to throw the ball. And I get that. But the entire first half, they could have run anytime they had the ball. They weren't behind like that.
No.
They
were always behind.
They weren't behind to where they had to.
No.
They had limited number of possessions and they had to score.
No, you got to figure the defense. You got to trust the defense.
When they ran, it was like they ran into the wall.
Yeah.
So,
and this is not the first week we saw it. We saw it against the week before too.
We ran against the Baltimore.
Yeah.
And against Baltimore and to some degree against Houston. So that's disturbing, but I don't do pluses or minuses, and I think they played better than a B, so they got an A.
Okay.
Wow. So do you want to let's do special teams.
Okay.
George, what would you give the special teams for a grade for this past game?
Well, I'd give a big fat F.
I think I knew that was coming.
And would end with a K. And an ing, and it would be like it was a joke out there. They gave up a blocked punt and a scoop and score, and they gave up nice run backs on kickoffs.
Yeah, it was, and on the last play, they didn't even have 11 guys on 10. They didn't have 10. They didn't even have 10 guys on the field. They had 9. So I don't know what the special teams were working on or have been working on, but somehow in this game, communication on the sideline just went to hell, and they couldn't even manage to figure out it with so little time left. Why not let him run the ball? So they don't have Codrington is not going to run the ball. He doesn't catch it. They just let it go. Like, I think that going on that last play, now, I don't have a lot of hope that he was going to run for a touchdown. But I do think that they didn't give themselves every opportunity because they were confused. Like, I don't think they understood the time was going to run out and you have to catch the ball. I don't think they understood that you're allowed to have 11 guys on the field.
Yeah.
So
now, people, just to jump back to the offense for a moment before people are screaming at us, there are people that could come up with the argument and say the offensive wouldn't have gotten an A because when the Bills scored their last touchdown, they messed up the timeout. They didn't take a timeout when they should have, and they deprived themselves
the
of the chance
to run the ball when they had 3 timeouts in the bank and they could have saved them. That was just a poor decision.
That was a coaching decision.
Well, of course it is. That's why I said it was a decision.
But I also have to question on that play where Josh couldn't make it in from the 1 yard line or 2 yard line, wherever they were. They really didn't try a tush push.
Well, they did.
Well,
Zach Davison was pushing them.
Yeah, but they didn't have it set up in a tight formation like that. like they did on the second
I
down.
understand. You don't like the execution of the
Yes.
call. I get
Was
that.
that
Yeah, that's
was
fine.
that a coaching play call rather than a
We
like
don't know what
offensive miscue?
we don't know what the heck they were thinking. Like,
Yeah,
it
my
was a little confusing.
my point is, if somebody wants to grade them down to a B instead of an A because of that, by all means, you have the right to do that, and
Well, they're not
I
on this
understand.
podcast, so
But in my opinion,
they have to have their own podcast for that.
when you look at the overall performance of the offense, I'm not going to worry about it coming down to the last. Maybe if we did it like this, we might get a chance to do that. The Bills scored 42 points. I'm giving them an A. All right, so back to the special teams where I thought they were a disaster, and you said the same
F.
thing. Yeah.
F.
How about on the defense? How did you feel about the
I'm going to give them multiple grades. Well, I'm look.
an
I'm,
F and a U?
no, I'm going to give the defensive backfield
Okay.
a D.
Okay.
The Unfortunately, the safeties had to make a lot of tackles on run game, run
Yeah.
plays, and they did tackle them. They were downfield, but they did. They also, so I'm going to give them a D, and then the linebackers get an F, and the defensive line gets an F. That's how I. So overall, defensive line fails. But I will say that the defensive backfield, those four guys, the two cornerbacks, Taron Johnson, the slot corridor, and the two safeties, they get a D, but they should take the class again because there's some shit they missed.
Mm-hmm. Well, I got to tell you, the defense for me was a F in disaster.
Mm,
And we both, you pointed some good things out to me as we watched some of the game on the All 22. And it was quite obviously like you had Von Miller. Sometimes when he was on the end, he didn't even rush. He'd just stand up and he'd face the the tackle and he'd make like moves with his arms or something, but he never made contact. He never tried to come towards the quarterback. I don't know what he was doing. Damar Hamlin, we found him out of position so many times and then chasing where the quarterback was going to throw the ball, and he was so far off the play
he got fooled
so many
a number
times.
of times, yeah.
Teron Johnson, and this is not the first game for Teron Johnson, as much as we like him. He he got pushed around, he got fooled, he was out of position, and I'm beginning to think, is it possible that Teron Johnson may be past his prime and we're seeing like the beginning of a Poyer and Hyde from a year
Downside.
or two ago, and we're seeing a downside. And I know this might be crazy, but a man-to-man guy in the slot like a Kyrie Elam, could that be a place for him? But that's a whole nother question. But Teron Johnson was a disappointment to me. Guy, Damar Hamlin was a disappointment. Um, Christian Benford was playing off the receiver so deep that he was keeping everything in front of him, but 15 to 20 yards down the field, he was giving up passes. And Damar Hamlin, who should be going back to help him as a safety, was out of position the entire time. It's and as far as pressure on from the front four, I didn't see any pressure from our front four.
No.
You know, we hear a lot of talk, negative talk right now about Ed Oliver, but he's not the only one. We didn't see anything from anybody, really.
Well, you're not wrong. The negative talk for Oliver is earned.
Mm-hmm.
He's not having a year that we would have anticipated he'd have.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's nothing wrong questioning that.
And the linebacker situation, it's good to have Milano back, but he's not playing like the Milano that we know. He's looking like a Milano that's been out of football for 2 years. And Dorian Williams is a better tackler at the line and will play downhill, and he's sitting on the bench. So I got some real crazy, um, real disappointing things to say about the coaching staff across the board, uh, with the exception of maybe the offensive coordinator, but not just like the offensive or defensive coordinator and the head coach, but all the other coaches, the line coach, the safeties coach, whatever. It was a disaster. Um, McDermott said, you got to have you got to have an attitude when you go into football. You got to have the right attitude. Those guys were not prepared for this game. They didn't have an attitude to go out and win this game. I don't know what they were thinking. They walked through that game.
The defense.
Yeah.
Well, a couple of notes. Just Milano, if he's ever able to get back to form,
Mm-hmm.
he's a better player than Dorian Williams. He's a better tackler. He's a better defender. He's better in everything.
If and when.
But not now.
Not now.
He was, last week was the first week back,
Mm-hmm.
and he played a lot of snaps, which surprised a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
But he played a lot of snaps. This week, his rush really showed. He looked indecisive at times. There were times when him and Hamlin were almost occupying the same space
Mm-hmm.
in a zone.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any
They're
sense.
standing next to each other.
So
Somebody's out of position.
somebody is
There's no
missed something.
communication.
Somebody,
Right.
yeah. And there was a play, I forget, I think Benford made a nice play on a pass to Cup where he knocked the ball down.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Because they had put Cup in motion and Cup then ended up lining up wide right. And Milano is doing this, he's pointing it out and he's communicating. Now, the thing that shocked us was Cup had 15 yards with nobody guarding him. Benford looks like he's got the deep third. He ain't coming up. A lot of points, like, hey, but nobody responds to that and goes and covers the
Yeah.
inside.
He
Now,
was pointing that there's something going on over there. You got to cover that guy, and nobody did.
now, as it turned out, they did like a 19-yard out pattern. So Benford, who was 15 yards downfield at the snap, backs up 5, keeps Cup always in front of him. And then when Cup makes his turn, he goes, that's when he bites, and he was able time to knock the ball down. But there was a solid 15 yards where he could have stopped and he could have just caught the ball. It wasn't the play, but that's he could have.
Can you pause it?
Yeah. Oh. All right, we're back. All right, so what were we talking about? We were talking about the Bills defense.
Let me add something to the Bills defense. So we're talking about like Matt Milano, and he's not making the right plays.
He looked indecisive.
I can understand why you'd want Matt Milano with the possibility of him being a much better cover guy than Dorian Williams. But Teron Johnson's getting pushed around by these big backs. And what do you think of, I threw out a quick thing saying, well, maybe a guy like sticky guy like Kaiir Elam in place of Teron Johnson. But what do you think of maybe going to a 3 linebacker set and let Milano just drop into coverage and put Dorian Williams as a guy that's in the box? Okay, let Milano replace Teron Johnson's position. Let him play running from that position or dropping into coverage.
Okay. Well, I don't think that Cooper Kupp against Milano would be a good choice for the Bills.
Mm-hmm.
Like Teron Johnson covers sleek, sexy, slot guys. You can't put Milano on them. That's absurd. He couldn't keep up with them anyway. He could, at best, if he can get his hands on him, he could chuck him at the line of scrimmage. You got that you can chuck with it. Oh, fine. If the guy can avoid that, he's beat on every route.
But if they're running the ball, three linebackers in there would be a hell of a lot better than a small like guy like Teron Johnson.
Well, I guess it kind of comes to they play a nickel and they dare you to beat them with a run.
Well,
That's their defense, right? They play a nickel
and
almost 100% of the time.
yeah, and what have we seen lately is they're just getting beat up with the run. And when they go to Detroit, they're going to have better running backs than we just saw.
If they go, so we've seen them use three linebackers.
Mm-hmm.
They once in a while would use Klein as a third linebacker,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they can do it. You know, we saw them do it a couple of times when they played Tennessee,
Mm-hmm.
and they had Derrick Henry. So they certainly can do it. Um, when they did that, Tennessee quarterback wasn't, I don't remember who they had at the time. He wasn't an all-star,
Mm-hmm.
but he threw for a bunch of yards. Right? So it is what it is. How do you want them to beat you? Do you want them to beat you through the air? Then go ahead and put your three linebackers. They're not built for it. So put your three linebackers, like they put your three linebackers in to stop the run. They probably could do a better job at the run if they did that. You're right. Now I don't know if they could then just, we just watched the Rams run and pass up and down the field,
Mm-hmm.
up and down the field. So we're trying to put a band-aid on, like the guy got his arm cut off. We're trying to use, a band-aid. Like
I see your point.
their single biggest issue is the defensive front.
But my situation, my reason for talking about this is the Bills are losing both against the run and against the pass. And we've given them these teams, go ahead and run. Now, not like beat us with the run. Go ahead, run. We don't care. And so now they're beating them with the run so bad that they finally tighten up a little bit, and then they're just suckers for the pass.
Yeah, the way they tightened up the run, they did not use three linebackers. They started playing with a single high safety and keeping one safety to put extra people in.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't go to bigger players. They went like an extra linebacker. They went to like moving a defensive back around. And okay, that's their system for what it is. They're in a tough spot because they have a system
Mm-hmm.
and they don't have four guys up front that can do what they need them to do. So they're always having to make allowances. They blitzed a lot and they never got there.
Never once.
So they're in a tough spot. You don't have the personnel to carry out the system that you want.
When I look at the Rams, their offensive line, they were using six guys because they'd have a tight end out there. 6 to 7 guys blocking for the running back to our front four, to our four defensive line. So they were easily pushing us out of the way and allowing their running backs and some of their blockers to get into our secondary or to the next level.
The Rams didn't invent the game. We've seen other teams do this.
And we never did anything to stop, even try and stop it. We just kept going with the same four guys up front. And we would just lay back with our
instead of making Milano
linebackers
a slot cornerback
mm-hmm.
and putting Dwayne Williams in, maybe they need three tackles. Maybe they need three tackles to stop the run. I mean, Von Miller can't give you any pass rush anyway. You take him out and put in Carter, who's maybe a little quicker,
and maybe can get up the middle.
Well, I'm putting him on the end, but whatever you want, yeah, like
I don't care where you put him.
They had to do something different, and I don't know if
you're talking about 5 big guys up front.
I'm talking about 4. Take a Von Miller, who's a light and
And saying
and to put a tackle on
he's
it.
not doing anything for us anyway.
He's not. If it's a pass, he ain't getting any pass rush anyway. So put that out there, see if you can stop the run there,
Mhm.
and then you still have your defensive backs and linebackers doing hopefully a better job. But you still have that. But you haven't taken. They believe Taron Johnson's the best or second best slot corner in the league. It's highly unlikely they're going to take him out for Doyle Williams.
I understand. I think he was the second best. I don't think he is showing that he is this year.
I'm not sure he ever was, but he was good. He is good. Whether or not he's on the downside, that is something that you brought up a couple of games ago when we were watching tape. And boy, were they just like Benford, uh, uh, Taron Johnson, Rasul Douglas. They just kept getting beat. They just kept getting over and over again. Hamlin kept getting out of position. They rarely ever play with one high safety. They sometimes will go with a high safety and what they call a robber. But in this case, they wanted that safety in the box to not a robber position who might surprise a quarterback when he goes to throw it on the middle, but a in the box position to help with the run. And that's not Hamlin's forte. And I think that was part of the reason he didn't know where to go and how to really play it. And Milano's trying to point like you got to get over there. So I hear you. I don't know. I don't know if that's the right personnel grouping, but they need to do something. They got to do something. Yeah. I do want to say I gave the um, I gave the defensive backs a D, but I will tell you what, this is the second time now Taylor Rapp, to me, has looked out of control and hit and hurt his own teammate.
Well, he's hurt right now. I don't know if he's going to be in anyway.
He put Taron Johnson out for 4 weeks with a broken bone. And then now Rapp just hit Rasul Douglas in the ribs to cause him to miss the series. He had a reputation.
He might be out this week. We might be seeing Jamar Ingram.
He came back and then apparently later hurt his knee. And it's the knee that might keep him out. Now, that had nothing to do with Taron Johnson, or that had nothing to do with Rapp. But he came to us with a reputation of being a guy who would hurt his teammates in friendly fire in practice and in games. And it's the second for year one, I didn't really see it, but year two, it's showing its ugly head. On the one where he hit Douglas, George and I were looking at it and watching him run across the goal. He's running parallel to the goal line. Cooper Kupp is about to score a touchdown. He's about to catch a pass at the goal line for a touchdown. Rapp comes over and instead of hitting Kupp, he's out of control, can't control his body, and hits Rasul Douglas in the ribs. And that's all on him. And he hit him so hard he knocked himself down. Rapp himself ends up on the ground. He hits Douglas and bounces down. And I think the guy was out of control. Not watching not able to identify what he wants to hit and then hit it. He was going too fast for his own ability to be able to control his body. So I don't know if this is the right. You got him for 2 more years after this year.
Well, all right. Now we certainly.
You want to talk about any of the stuff, the ridiculous stuff you heard in the press conference? Bobby Babich. Bobby Babich. He needs classes on how to speak to the press because he
looked like a very inexperienced guy who was struggling to answer questions by some of the reporters. And you could see that he was just falling back on supporting his team type cues. And even though he didn't believe in himself, and that's the way he looked.
Yeah. And trying to work in more cliches. It just look, I understand you don't want to criticize your players. Don't have a press conference. Just don't do it. Coaches are required at times to have press conferences, head coaches. But the The coordinators are not. There's no rule in the NFL that says coordinators have to have press conferences. Now, there may be some stuff Super Bowl week that they're required to do, but not now, not regular weeks. This is actually coordinators started having offensive and defensive coordinators started having press conferences in the week as a way of preparing them for the head coach role, giving them some of the responsibility that a head coach does. But I don't know, he ain't ready.
John, one of the reporters was asking Babbage, and this is not verbatim, it's just the base from the best recollection from my memory. But he asked him, like, what's going on with Taylor Rapp? Why did he go behind the receiver where
When he hurt Rasul Douglas.
Rasul Douglas was, instead of cutting in front of the receiver, and so that the two could have sandwiched that receiver and maybe stopped that pass at the goal line? And Babbitt's, he's like, oh yeah, we really like Taylor Rapp. We really think he's great out there. And I don't know, help me remember what I told you.
Something about you go where your eyes are looking.
Oh yeah, he's tried to excuse it as like, well, you go where your eyes are looking, and he should have been looking in a different spot than where he went, and then he would have went where his eyes was looking. and he goes, but he's doing a great job, and we're really
like him.
We really like him. And the reporter just answered back like, but coach, he's just running around out there. Why is he just running around? I don't think he knows where he's going. He's just running around.
It sounds a lot like the coordinator, like there was no special teams coordinator press conference. Smiley. And then Smiley didn't get the answer.
Yeah, well, we always learn from things, and yeah, Mom, well, you just finished telling us how you love this guy, and the reporter's asking,
someday a reporter's going to be like, Coach McDermott, you always talk about how you learn from the mistakes, but your team finds ways to make new mistakes.
Why do you keep making new ones?
Making new mistakes. Like, you make 9 guys on a field make mistakes that you never made before.
We fix the old ones.
What the heck?
They're spending so much time fixing old mistakes, they don't look like what's in front of them. All right, so we're talking about a team. We're complaining. We're talking about a team that scored 42 points. God bless the Bills. That was a great offensive performance, and they were let down by both their defense and special teams. And the special teams has let us down a number of times this year, but the defense hasn't been that bad, except in a couple of instances. And one really was the Ravens. They got taken in the first half against the Texans, but they did come back in that second half. We almost pulled it out. But when I say we almost pulled out this game against the Rams, no. We never took the lead. We never threatened to tie it up or take a lead. We were chasing them. We were always 2 scores down. We'd get one, they'd score right away. We're 2 scores down. We'd get a score, they'd score right away. We're 2 scores. So they were never Bills never threatened in this game. They could never catch them because the defense couldn't stop. They couldn't stop water flowing through a clock pipe.
Yeah. They didn't stop. The only time they forced the punt was the end of the game when they let the clock run out.
Yeah, they punted the ball, and then the clock ran out in the end zone, and they didn't even bother to field it and run it back.
I understand they're 10-3,
mm-hmm.
but this was so bad it deserves to be criticized just on its own merits.
Yeah,
there's no but. This was horrendous. This was when we all had a great time in the playoff game when the Bills scored on almost every possession against the Patriots. This is that. We were the Patriots here.
Yeah,
we were the Patriot defense over and over, unable to stop them.
I'm really happy with the offense. Could they have done some things better? Yes.
No. They had no running game. They could not move the bodies on the front line. That's a problem.
But yeah, they couldn't
That
they couldn't
is the
open any
problem.
running lanes. You're right. And they could do but they also had plenty of plays and players, and the offensive line did the protection, and they were able to score almost at will. So it's like they
Hold on, because I have a different opinion.
oh, okay, all right.
They made plays. They didn't. Allen made plays.
I don't know.
Scheme guys open.
Cooper, you had a lot of to say in there.
There isn't. There was. Well,
Shakir,
there was no.
Ty Johnson.
There was no scheming that got these guys open. Allen made plays. Now those guys caught balls. Some of them were great catches. There was that deep pass, the 55-yarder to Shakir,
Yeah.
where a guy jumps it like
Oh, it's still
in front of him.
incredible throw
Incredible focus.
and the focus on the receiver.
But
Wow.
that still, that was outside scheme.
hmm
Allen goes on the run, makes a play outside the scheme. Does the wide receiver make a good catch? Yeah. But it was outside the scheme. Everything broke down for them except for Josh, go do something.
You know,
That's what worked for them.
you
And
know-
because now the offensive line did give him some protection,
Mhm.
which allowed him to do more. You know, which did allow him to do more because if he was more under pressure,
Mhm.
he couldn't have thrown some of they could have thrown some of those balls. But not being able to having a running, you wanted a running game for years.
Mhm. Well,
Now, when they're not able to run, they score as many points as they did because he put a Superman cape on.
mhm.
If he can't do it, and that's when they really need to run.
Yeah.
So they didn't win this game because the defense and because they couldn't run the ball.
I'll tell you when the Bills lost this game. At
The
the
kickoff.
coin toss. When the Bills lost the coin toss, the Lions deferred. No, the Lions gave
The
ball-
Rams.
The Rams did not defer. The Bills, I don't know who won this coin. Now I'm confused, but the Bills took the defensive side of the ball on the opening drive.
Maybe they won the case. Maybe they won the.
They should have picked, and I always say this, and you hear me say it for them: take the ball, get the lead. Take the ball, get the lead. Don't worry about what's going to happen in the second half. Teams can make so many adjustments. You're not going to be the same team coming out at halftime as you are to start a game. So, Bills, take the ball and take the lead. Then the Rams could have chased us the entire day.
Well, the two problems with that. One is we didn't.
That's right. We didn't.
We didn't. They scored. We didn't. They scored again. So on our first drive, we didn't score anyway. We got a kickoff because they scored. So there's no buts. We didn't. We didn't take the ball, but don't score. On top of that, you don't remember your Bills history. You should never say that. No, here's the thing. The first Super Bowl, Super Bowl 25.
Mm-hmm.
The New York Giants kept the ball for 19 minutes of game time. They had the ball at the end of the first half. We couldn't get off the field. They kept the ball. They moved downfield.
Otis Anderson ran and ran and ran.
And then at the second
Could
half,
never stop
to start the second half, the Giants get the ball. He ran and ran. They couldn't stop
So
him.
maybe that tells you right there. We need to stop the run. We got to stop worrying so much about the throwing ability. Stop the run and find a way to get pressure on the quarterback.
Let me make
And the passing game will take care of itself.
let me make one point before you go into another one.
Mhm.
They should never, if they have an opportunity to get the second half kickoff, they should always take it because this franchise has already lost games.
Mhm.
Because 19 minutes of game time is a third of the game. They didn't even sniff the ball for 19 minutes.
Yeah.
That is a big reason. That's a big part of the reason why they lost. Now, with that said, that's a good question. Look, I used to say, if you want to win a Super Bowl, you have to be able to run the ball and you have to be able to stop the run. When you can't stop the run, what did the Bills do? Was it last year against the Dallas Cowboys?
Mhm.
They found out that the Cowboys were short at linebacker. They had another injury. They couldn't stop the run.
They couldn't stop.
And they just ran. Cook had his breakout game. If you can't stop the run, you're not going anywhere anyway.
Mhm.
That is true. And
Alright.
I don't know if they've got the personnel to be able to stop good running team.
All right, with all this said, what do you think about this week? They're going to Detroit Lions, a team that's 12-1 and one of the most aggressive offenses in the league in many years. And they're pretty healthy.
Yeah, what's his name does go for it on fourth down quite a bit.
Mhm.
One of the reasons why he's so famous for doing that is because of the number of times it doesn't work. Like that's how they lost the playoff game last year. That's
Mhm.
why they didn't go to the Super Bowl. He went for it on fourth down.
Mhm.
When if you kick, he's thinking if I keep possession, I can run the clock.
Mhm.
But if you kick, you get the points, and then you do your kickoff, and the clock runs out anyway. So he is determined to now go for it on all these fourth downs. He goes for it on his own side of the field on fourth down. Um, and when it doesn't work, they lose.
Yeah,
But they don't lose often, right? They don't
it's
lost one time this
Frank
year.
Sinatra,
Yeah,
do it
good
my
husband.
way.
He's a he's a hard end.
You want to pick a winner?
Uh, yeah, Detroit.
You pick a
It
Detroit.
is in Detroit, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Detroit. Bro, when Detroit has decent teams, it's always been a tough place to play,
Mhm.
especially on Thanksgiving, right? So, but this isn't Thanksgiving. I think that Detroit is they want to show that the 12-1 record isn't a fluke. They went to the NFC Championship game last year. They want to show they belong to the big boys, and they don't get much bigger than Buffalo.
All right. So, motion
And I'm
can
not entirely sure Buffalo because they didn't come out with any sense of urgency. So who knows if they'll have any this week?
emotion can really play with a person's thought process and picking a team that they think is going to win. Or like, when a team wins, they're undefeatable. When a team loses, they're unwinnable. And are you sure you're not reacting to emotion? You just think Detroit's the
Well,
team.
they're a better team.
Okay.
Like they look to be a better team this year, and they seem to be able to do like it's a matchup problem for Buffalo.
Mhm.
They've got good off. They have what is considered to be the best offensive line in the game.
Mhm.
Now, how is our defensive line going to fare against that?
Mhm.
And they've got a solid defensive front. It's a big defensive front.
Mhm.
So I'm thinking 30-17.
All right. Well, we don't quite see it the same.
Well, yeah. What do you got?
Well, I think that the Detroit Lions are maybe one of the most, if not the most complete team in the NFL right now. I think they're that good. But I don't think the Bills are going to give up 40 points again. But I think
There's a
Detroit,
lot of games that you could lose without giving up 40
that
points.
I believe Detroit is going to score somewhere in the 30s.
Oh, okay.
But I think so are the Bills.
All right.
And I think it's going to be a close game. And I think the Bills are going to lose.
Right.
I don't think they're
I
going
thought
to.
you were going to say they were going to win there.
I
Okay.
think it might be a case where they are either tied or slightly ahead, and Detroit is going to put on that 2-minute offense, and the Bills' defense will falter, or the special teams will fall apart, and somehow we'll blame it on the coach, and he couldn't control the clock, or something crazy like that.
I was going to ask you, will Sean McDermott have another bad game in-game decision?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just asking, will he have another bad in-game decision? Do you think this is a game where he's going to mess up again on sideline?
Yes, and I think I see.
Confidently, you said that.
I think the score is going to be like 37-31.
Ooh, okay. Well, that's not 40, but it's right up against 40.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a decent Bills offense that can score, and they got additions back and Kincaid. They're going to have um, Coleman back, and it's going to get more threats to the passing game, and it might open up the running game a little bit more.
It would be
But
nice to see them be able to run the ball against a heavy defensive front like that.
but if they can't figure out how to stop those two running backs of Detroit, then the game is over.
You got to figure out how to stop that, and at the same time, try to contain or stop. Okay, Amon Ra, James,
St. Brown,
St. Brown, and also
Jameson
James
Williams, and Laporta, the tight end.
I didn't even forgot about him. Yeah,
And so they've got all kinds of weapons. And Jared Goff, he's a good quarterback. I don't see he's an MVP as I do in Josh Allen, but think that for this offense, he's good enough.
he has won an NFC Championship
Mm-hmm.
game.
So
That's pretty good.
yeah, that's pretty good. I'm going with Detroit, reluctantly so, but I think that the Bills are not quite as good as Detroit now, and they're reeling coming off of this terrible, terrible defensive. And I think even the coaches are going to be questioning themselves. And the Bills seem to have losses 2 or 3 in a row. They group their losses, and I think this is the second two in a row loss on the road, and then they get to go back home and straighten things up.
All right. Thank you for watching, everyone.
Go Bills!
Go Bills.
Enjoy the game.
Enjoy the game.